In this video, I am making another family favorite, Peach Cobbler, and it's going to be oh so delicious. And just to let you know, this is actually a collaboration with Pegi and Don from Pegi and Don, and just like me, Pegi is in the kitchen and she's making peach cobbler too. So when you're done looking at my peach cobbler recipe, go on over and check out Pegi and Don and see what Pegi is whipping up on her peach cobbler recipe. But in the meantime, let's get this one started. I like a really buttery crust on my peach cobbler, and I like it to be soaked in peachy sauce goodness. So you're going to see a lot of juice or a lot of sauce in this peach cobbler. Sometimes I just like a crust on the top, and sometimes I like the crust on the top and bottom, because the more crust you have, the more it can soak up that peachy sauce goodness. So we're going to have a double crust on this cobbler. So we're going to need 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt, and then we're just going to whisk that together. Give that a good whisk just so we can get those all mixed throughout. And I'm going to be using 2 sticks of butter, and I've had my butter in the freezer for a bit because I like for my butter to be good and cold, and I'm going to cut that butter up into little cubes, and then I'm going to work it into this flour mixture. I'm going to set that back just for a second, and now I'm going to cut my butter into cubes. And 2 sticks of butter is 1 cup. If you don't want to use this much butter, you could go with 1 stick of butter, which is ½ cup, and then ½ cup of shortening. And this butter is unsalted. I want to make sure I say that. Now we're going to add our butter to our flour mixture. Now you can use a pastry cutter to cut this butter into the flour mixture, but if you don't have one, it's okay. And actually, I prefer to do mine the old-fashioned way. I just take a knife, or rather 2 knives, and just cut the butter into the flour mixture. And once it gets cut up to where I think it's good, I might even rub it just a little bit. But you want a nice crumbly mixture. Now, in case you're wondering what did I mean by rub it, you just pick up the flour and the butter mixture and you just rub it together like that. And that just really kind of helps to get it into the flour. You want a nice crumbly little mixture, kind of like really lumpy cornmeal. Now some people like to use a fork, and they just take the fork and you just kind of mash the butter into the flour, and you just kind of keep going around the dish like that. And I can certainly feel the butter start to soften up, and I'm getting more of the consistency that I'm looking for. And then once I get it to where I want it, get this butter cut in, I'll add my water. I'll add almost a ½ cup of water, but not quite. I'll just sprinkle it in a little at a time once I've got my butter nicely cut in. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Look at that. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to start to sprinkle in my ice water. Just gonna knead it. And it's still a little sticky, but I can see it's coming together. Now that I've got it out of the bowl, I'll just put it on this lightly floured surface and just knead it gently. And it's come together nicely. I'm liking the way it's feeling. Feels nice and soft. Yeah, I'm loving this. All right, so I've got it in a nice little ball. You can kind of see some of the lumps of butter there in the crust mixture. And I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator and let it chill for about 30 minutes while I make my peach mixture. I've got everything cleaned up now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this dish buttered. And I like to use this dish for cobblers. It's nice and deep. So I'll set it back there. And now we'll get started on the peach cobbler filling. I'll just drain the juice off of one of these cans of peaches and reserve it just in case I need it later. Because as I said, I like a lot of juicy peach sauce in my cobbler. And I've got 2 of these 29-ounce cans of peaches. One is draining and one is not. Also going to add my sugar. And there's a cup of white sugar. And I've also got a half a cup of brown sugar, teaspoon of nutmeg, teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of lemon juice. I just kind of like the tartness that the lemon juice adds. And 2 tablespoons of butter. And I give that all a good stir. I'm going to set it on medium heat for about 20 minutes and then we'll come back and give it a taste. These have been cooking for about 25 minutes and I like to check to see if I can cut the peach with a wooden spoon. If I can do that, I know it's time to turn it down to a simmer and get my crust ready. Got my dough out the fridge, so I'll get some flour on my counter so that I can use that . Flour my rolling pin. Now we'll get this dough cut in half. I put the other half in the fridge until I was ready to work with it. So now I'm gonna get this rolled out. And this is for my bottom crust. I've got lots of juice in mine cobbler. And I want to be able to soak up all of that goodness. And let me get my dish. That way I know what I'm working towards. I wanted to get about 1/8 inch thick, just not very thick at all. Now I saw this recipe for using a brown sugar and cinnamon mixture on the crust that goes on the bottom. So I'm going to give that a try. I've not tried that before, but I do like cinnamon and I love brown sugar. So I'm going to give that a try. This is looking pretty good. And you just kind of bring it back to you, just back and forth. Keeping the rolling pin lightly floured as needed. And then when you're ready to lift it, it's sticking a little bit, so I might need to get some help here. I could have floured it a little better, it looks like. But I'll get it folded in half that way. And fold it that way. I like to fold it into quarters. And then I put half in the dish that way. And just kind of unfold it. And my dish has been buttered so that I've got room to maneuver it. Looks like I need a little bit more up on the sides. Trying not to tear it. And if you didn't want to make your own pie crust, you wouldn't have to. You could just buy a box of Pillsbury pie crust that has 2 pie crusts already made, and all you got to do is roll them out. And I have been known to do that, but I do enjoy making my own when I have the time. I'm going to pull this up just a little bit more because once it starts to bake, it's going to shrink down just a little bit. Now I found the idea to put the cinnamon sugar combination on the bottom of the pie crust from a website called Divas Can Cook. And she was making a peach cobbler too. Whereas I like cinnamon, I don't like too much. Okay, so let's set that aside. And I'll get the other pie crust ready. I'll try to get a little bit more flour. And I like to go towards me and away from me. And since I'm not trying to do a circle, I want this to be more linear. Okay. We'll get the strips made to put on top of the dish. I'll just get these rolled up and set aside so they don't stick to the counter as you saw the other one did. Now it's time to pour this in. Okay, now let's get that crust across the top. If you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you join the T&T community. I teach traditional homemaking for today's homemaker. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, all things needed to make and keep a home. I can teach you to be a traditional homemaker in an untraditional world. So hit that subscribe button. So I've got it set for 350 and I'm going to let it bake for about an hour. And yes, I have entirely too much juice in that dish, and I knew it when I poured it in there, but I did it anyway. So that's one of the reasons why I put that cookie sheet underneath to catch the drippings that runs off. And then once it's probably baked for about 15-20 minutes, I'll brush the top of it with some melted butter and sprinkle some of that brown sugar and cinnamon topping on top of that. So we'll come back. This butter topping with the sprinkled on brown sugar is just going to make this peach cobbler taste all the more amazing. And then back in the oven it goes. And you see I've got 2 cookie sheets working now. One so that I don't get anything on the door, and one that I don't get any drips in the oven. Look at that. Doesn't it look absolutely delicious? I can't wait to dig into it, but I'm going to have to because it's pretty darn hot and I don't want to burn my mouth. So I'm going to let this cool and then I'll come back and I'll scoop a little bit of it out and give it a taste. But I already tasted the sauce, so I already know it's going to taste absolutely delicious. But now I just need some of that delicious buttery crust along with that peachy sauce. And here's my question for you. How do you like your peach cobbler? Do you like one with the top crust and the bottom crust? Or do you just like a top crust? I was talking with a couple ladies at the beauty shop yesterday, and we were talking about how to make peach cobbler. And Mrs. Russell said she doesn't put a crust on the bottom. She just likes a top crust because the bottom crust gets all soggy. And I'm like, I like that juiciness in that bottom crust. My beautician said crust on the top only. And then, of course, Mrs. Russell said you gotta make peach cobbler with fresh peaches. And I'm like, Mrs. Russell, where are you gonna get fresh peaches at this time of the year? She said she froze some. She put some in the freezer so she'd have them ready for peach cobblers and peach pie in the winter. Well, I missed peach season, so canned peaches it was. And my friend, my beautician, said she only uses canned peaches. So there's always a little bit of a discussion about who likes this, who likes that, but they always turn out beautifully. So again, my question to you is, do you like yours with the crust on top only? Or do you like a crust on the top and the bottom? Or do you like it any way you can get it, like I do? If you're looking for the perfect dessert for a Sunday dinner or for a holiday table, peach cobbler is always appropriate. No one ever gets up from the table hungry if there's peach cobbler for dessert. And don't forget that this video is a collaboration with Pegi at Pegi&Don. She's in the kitchen today just like I am, and she's making peach cobbler too. But her peach cobbler will have her own unique spin on it. So be sure to go over and see Pegi&Don so you can check out her peach cobbler recipe. And if you're looking for other dishes to have on your holiday table, you might want to check out my Thanksgiving 101 playlist, where I show you how to make my family favorite mac and cheese, how to roast a turkey, how to make my favorite cornbread dressing, candied yams on top of the stove and in the oven, and so many other dishes that I'm sure you will want on your holiday table. All right, so this has been cooling on the counter, so now let's dig in. Listen to that oldness. Plenty of sauce. Hot dog. Plenty of sauce. Amazing. Now the only thing missing is a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. And let's take care of that right now. And since I overfilled the dish, I had to put a cookie sheet underneath the dish so that the drippings, the runoff, would catch the cookie sheet, because I did not want that in the bottom of my oven. Even though I do have a copper oven liner, I didn't want that even on the oven liner. So I put a cookie sheet underneath there and even changed it out a couple of times so I didn't have that burnt juice on the cookie sheet stinking up the house. So the cookie sheet worked well though, because I didn't want to get it on the bottom of the oven, but I also didn't want to get it on the oven door. So the cookie sheet worked out nicely. Then I put some cold water in there and sprinkled in a little baking soda, and that'll help to dissolve that burnt on peach juice. And then my cookie sheet will come out nice and clean. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying, you are not done yet. Click on the link in the comment section below and check out Pegi's Peach Cobbler, and I will see you next time.